Hello and welcome to the latest Author Spotlight. I'm delighted to be joined today by Canadian author Scott Bury. So let me start at the beginning. You've had a very interesting life before you came to writing. You were a journalist, which I'm sure helps with deadlines and writing concisely. So what was the first thing you wrote? Can you remember? And how you started
First thing,
writing and your path thereafter.
so after journalism, I guess the first thing it's hard to say because I've always been writing various things, stories and so on. But the first thing fiction that I published was a children's story, very sarcastic one called Sam the Strawb about
Sweet.
kind of inspired by one of my children who was at that age where kids slur everything together, and he loved strawberries. So it's a story about a little boy who decides to become a bicycle pirate and steal all the strawberries.
Wow.
And strawberries become Strawb, and pirate becomes part. So
that was his language, was it, at the time?
yeah, that was it. It just straw part.
Yeah.
So
Bless.
and it was fun. Didn't
Yeah.
sell a lot, but it was a
Right.
fun thing to write and to put together. So and then
And
I
did you
published a
yourself
short story.
mhm,
Yes, I self-published it,
published it?
and then I wrote a short story called Dark Clouds. Had an idea: what if the Queen of the Witches' son was immune to magic?
Right.
So, and then I put out the my first published novel, um, uh, which is something I had been working on for many years. It's a
Mm.
drag. I just wanted to write a dragon story that would appeal to my kids, as well as they didn't fall back on too many of the tropes that I'd seen on bookstore shelves, and that
Mm.
was The Bones of the Earth.
Okay. And do you read what the because you got a real mixture of the story literally doesn't end there. But do you read
No,
what you write, or is those you said initially for the children or inspired by your children?
yes, I mean I read quite a wide range of stories. I sort of realized that at some point, the books that I tended to like the most were magical realism, like 100 Years of Solitude
Right.
or Winter's Tale or Chocolat, or it's stories that fall into that category. I
Mm.
just really like them, and so that's what I kind of try to do a little bit with Bones of the Earth was
Mm.
base it in reality.
Yes.
It's set in Eastern Roman Empire of the 6th century, but
Mm.
has a few fantastical elements.
Right. And how do you do your research for going that far
Oh,
back?
that was hard. The internet helps. Libraries are great.
Mm.
Read a lot of books about Roman and Byzantine history.
Mm.
Um, there was a book about looking at some books on ancient cultures, ancient Slavic culture. There
Mm.
was the writing of an Arab explorer who traveled to the Rus
Mm.
sometime after the 6th century. That is, but yeah, sort of, I guess, reverse extrapolated some of his findings.
Mm.
Yeah, there's a lot of it. Sometimes it takes a long time. The funny thing is, you can be writing, uh, you know, churning out hundreds of words, and then you get stuck on one really minor point, and you think, well, I could just fudge it, but I ended up researching that for hours. Like, how much did a horse cost
Right.
in Rome in
Mm.
the 6th century? And then, well, wait a minute, what was that leads to? What was the currency they used,
Mm.
and how long would it take someone to earn that much money? And so you just end up spending hours or days
Mm.
looking for this one little obscure point.
Mm. But the thing about being an author is that you have to know 100 facts, but you might only use two of them because you don't, even though it
Oh
might be
yes,
interesting to some people, you don't want to cram everything in that if it's not relevant to the story. But equally, you want to get it
that's
right
exactly
because
right.
Yeah, I say I edit for the 100th reader because 99 readers won't notice or won't know, but you can guarantee if you get something wrong, somebody will
Yeah,
take great pleasure in emailing you and letting you know.
yeah,
So
yeah.
history's,
When you write
sorry.
thrillers, I've written thrillers and mysteries.
Mm,
You got to get, if you're going to put a gun in, you got to get all the details of the gun right, or somebody's going to write you a nasty review or a nasty email. Hey,
yeah,
that's not how that particular weapon works. So I don't
yeah,
know anything about guns, but I know some people who do know a lot about guns, and
mm,
I turn to them.
yeah. It's a good idea. Always handy to have useful people
Yeah, yeah.
because you could go on
And that's also
Wikipedia.
that. Sorry.
I was just going to say you could go on Wikipedia and or other, always check more than one fact. And because I've gone on and found that something was mentioned in a novel that was set in 1985, and that particular thing wasn't made until 1990. And so it is
Exactly. Yeah.
research is a complete rabbit hole, isn't it? Once
It
you
is. It
start.
is.
Mm,
And when you mention that you have to know 100 facts and use two of them,
mm,
that's something comes up as well in journalism, right? You find a lot of information, and sometimes, yeah, it may prove in a way relevant, but it gets in the way of the point you're trying to make.
yeah.
Your readers won't really care, or they'll take it on faith that you've done your research as a
Mm,
credible journalist. And
mm,
so, yeah, you're going to skip over that part because it just would take, especially as journalism, you've got a certain number of column inches. Well, you used to.
sure.
That's how far back I go. But there's a certain amount of space, and not everything fits into that space.
Mm, yeah. Do you find having that background that you do you have a routine to how you write? You have certain because presumably being a journalist, you weren't working a traditional 9 to 5. You were sort of
No,
set deadlines, and are you pretty good with deadlines?
yes, I am. Yeah. When it comes to writing your own stuff, your deadlines are a lot more flexible.
Mm,
But when if it's for someone else, I've almost always hit my deadline if I haven't,
mm,
sent a message to the editor or the publisher.
sure.
Whatever reason, I can't meet this. I need an extension.
Mm. Are you a morning writer, an evening writer? When do you write? When's your favorite? And because you obviously have a
I guess
family.
yeah, I like writing in the morning.
Mhm.
I can't always do it. Just things get in the way. I tend to get really going in the late morning, early afternoon because I deal with all the little things first, and probably that's not the best way to do it. But um, you know, yeah, walk the dog, clean the kitchen, whatever else. Look at the emails. Got to do that. All those
Sure.
the little tasks, and they really add up.
Mm. So you
Frustration
write,
of a writer.
yeah, absolutely.
That's just one of
Well,
the
it's
frustrations of a writer. Like all these little things get in the way of what you
yeah,
really want to do.
yeah. So you write short stories and novels still. Do you have more than one thing on the go? Do you find you switch from one format to another? So
Oh
if you get
yes,
stuck, because you
absolutely.
mentioned occasionally you get stuck on something, and
Yeah.
do you then switch to something else?
Yes, I do. And a lot of it again is, well, it's hard to say if it's deadlines or passions or whatever. So right now,
Mm,
I started writing one sort of near future dystopian book, and then suddenly got an inspiration for a completely different kind of novel. So I'm working on that.
mm,
But a lot of my time right now is taken up with my podcast, so which is
okay.
something I decided to start doing 2 years ago. Um,
Mm.
and I didn't realize then just how time consuming that is.
It is. I ran one for a couple of years called Bailey's Writing Tips, and I did it for 2 years, and it was every Sunday, and that was sort of a 20-minute, 30-minute episode, and writing the scripts and then recording it and editing it and getting the material. It took every Sunday, every week, and I had to
Yeah.
stop after 100 and something episodes,
Oh wow.
just because yeah, it was really time consuming.
Yeah.
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 You
I'm at
enjoy it
episode
though.
50. Yeah, I enjoy it. Mine is still quite different. It's unique, really, and Yeah, I do it bi-weekly, so I'm now at episode 55.
Yeah. And what's it called? So people
It's
can
called
have a look.
Beyond Barbarossa, and it's
Okay.
the only English language podcast in the world that focuses on the Eastern Front of World War II.
Wow.
And that's a lot of research too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it sounds like, but it sounds like well, you're used to research, being a journalist, but it's something
Yeah.
you enjoy if you don't get distracted by Facebook and the likes.
I do enjoy it. And this is kind of the reason, or one of the reasons I did a podcast like that, is that you find all these connections that you didn't realize, that things happen at the same time. Something will happen for example, with this podcast, I find something that happened in Mongolia will have an effect in Europe within
Right.
a few days. So all these things are connected, and it's a surprise when you put all that together. And this is something that we don't get in high school history classes.
Sure. Yeah, because you have the curriculum to follow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the curriculum I find is very much skewed to a particular culture and a particular even the politics.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've also written, we have in your biography, erotic fantasy, romance. Is there a
Yes.
genre that you haven't written that you're considering writing, would like to write?
Well, I don't think I'll ever write like a billionaire romance. Well, I guess that is a billionaire romance. I don't know. I can't think of one. I mean, I haven't written, every genre there is. I wrote one children's story. I don't know if I'll ever write a funny animal story. Maybe.
We have Daisy,
the
so
erotic romance.
maybe she'll be your inspiration. Write a dog detective or something. Yeah.
Yeah. I had an idea for a cat who stows away on airplanes, but I haven't really gotten anywhere with that. I don't know. I just, there's stories. I just see them as stories, and something that's interesting, something that will make a reader want to find out what happens next. And so, is it a genre? I don't know. I know that you're supposed to pick a genre and stay with it, but I can't do that.
I think it helps writing short stories though, because then you can either do a collection where they're different genres, or just do a little something, almost try it out. And a lot of people write for the pleasure of it, but also something that they think it's never going to go anywhere else. Some readers say, oh, I've read everything you've ever written, and I doubt that there is a writer. I think I've come across one in 20 years who has actually published everything they've written. But I think everybody has a bottom drawer that they write things, especially first novels, that they think, oh no, that's, maybe I'll come back to it when I've learned the craft and I've written my million words, is quoted as saying you learn by the time you've written your million words.
Okay. I hadn't heard that one. I do have a manuscript I wrote as a practice before I did the Bones of the Earth. I wanted to get, moving from journalism to long form fiction, and so I plotted it, and I did an outline, created some characters, wrote a draft of a novel. It's probably about 50,000 words, and then I just put it aside. I'm thinking I'll hand it over to some other writer to. For a different point of view, and bring it, bring that to life in some way.
Yeah, that'd be good. So, presumably, again, coming back to your journalism, do you find that your first drafts are fairly tight? Doesn't need a huge amount of editing?
They do need a fair bit of editing, but yeah, they're pretty tight, because I believe in outlines. So I like to come up with an idea, story arc, and then sketch it out fairly completely. Now there's still, I end up going in different directions as I'm writing. Sometimes the characters surprise you, but I try to stick to the outline fairly closely. And then sometimes I'll throw out whole chapters because, you know, I thought when I was writing, I thought this is interesting, but then you get to the end of the chapter and you realize it doesn't add to the story at all.
No.
So
No.
you put that aside. But yeah, I mean, they still need editing. They, you know, I don't see all my own mistakes. Sometimes I think I've written something really clever, you know, a line that's really smart, and then the editor says, "What does this even mean?" So,
and are you a fairly good client? Can you if you I mean, it is your story, so ultimately you have to agree with everything that stays in. But you might maybe fume and then calm down and say, okay, I can
it
handle
all
that.
depends on who the editor is. If I trust the editor, and so I only really, with fiction, I only accept, you know, and only select an editor that I do agree with, that I do respect. But if it's, yeah, I have to admit there have been times where an editor has said something and I've fumed, sometimes loudly, sometimes for my wife after the fact that, oh, what an idiot that guy is.
But so I understand you've done collaborations with Toby, Neal, amongst a couple of other people. And how did you find that? Because obviously it's
Toby,
different.
it was great. Yeah. Well, yeah, that was a program that Amazon had a few years ago. It lasted maybe for 4 years, and then they canceled it. But yeah, Toby had created this this series, and it was selling very well. So Amazon thought, well, we'll let, you know, people are writing fan fiction, so we'll let people publish it and we'll make some money off of it. So Toby invited a group of writers. I think there were 8 of us to start with. And, you know, so she selected some people, and I was one of them. So yeah, and I wrote in her lay crime series. So it's set in Hawaii, and yeah, she was great to work with. I started writing it, and yeah, I realized that I didn't know anything about Hawaii, and so I took a trip.
I was going to say, a good excuse for a research, all expenses paid research trip. No tax.
It wasn't
Thanks
all
very
expenses
much.
paid. Yeah. It wasn't all expenses paid, that's for sure. But yeah, it was. I mean, we had planned a vacation anyway, so we got just lucked into a good flight, and I had a great time. And I met Toby, and I had sent her a draft of the book, of the outline first, and I was going to Hawaii to, you know, fill in some of those little details like the geology of the island and so on.
Sure.
And yeah, she read the book and she gave me some really good feedback. And the result was Torn Roots. And then, of course, Amazon canceled the program, and for copyright reasons, they had to unpublish the book or delist the book. So I rewrote it around the copyright issues, changed the names, added some stuff, took some stuff out. So now that's still out as Torn Roots, and it's a Hawaiian Storm mystery.
They were published as you before, when you were in the collaboration.
Yeah, they published all my name.
Yeah.
It had the little Kindle Worlds badge on the cover.
Okay.
But now it's a new cover, and new names for characters, and some new details. Plot is roughly the same.
Right. Do you like how do you feel sort of self-publishing versus traditional publishing? Because it is freeing. There's a lot of work because we have to do everything as self-published authors. Do you like the freedom and the control of it?
Yeah, I think I do. I would appreciate the commercial publishers' strength in marketing. I think that would make I don't know. I hope that would make a difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as the editorial content goes, I mean, I've got a lot. You know, before I was a journalist, I also worked as at a book publishing company. I worked at Prentice Hall, which is now part of Simon and Schuster, which is part of some other corporation. But yeah, it's, I guess, yeah, having the control, choosing the covers, choosing the editors, and I'm telling the story I want to tell. That's what I like.
How do you get on
and
with
I
your,
know
you
how
have
to
a,
put a book together.
yes. How do you, how did you find your cover? You have a cover designer, do you, to do your covers? Or you
Yes,
find them
usually I
yourself?
use a man named David Cassidy or David
Hmm.
C. Cassidy, who's another
Okay.
Canadian.
Mm.
And I met him through a writers group. He's also an author, but he's a trained graphic designer. So yeah, he does some interesting. He does very good work. I'm really happy with what
Okay.
he gives me.
Okay, because I know a lot of people are always looking for good cover designers. So it's nice to
Yeah, yeah,
have a name. So
yes.
when you're not when
Sometimes,
you're
and
no, sorry,
go ahead.
carry on.
No, no,
No, I
go
was
ahead.
just I was just going to say, what when you're not writing and involved with your family and taking Daisy out, how do you relax? What do you do? Obviously a big reader.
I yeah, I bike. I ride my bike a lot,
Mm,
and friend do some outdoorsy stuff. A friend of mine has a canoe, so we go canoeing every
nice.
week on the Ottawa River. Um, Sometimes we'll invade Quebec, um, and no, I don't know. My time is pretty taken up with between writing and editing and looking after
Mm,
the family and this dog and
life,
uh,
life.
various other things. I don't
Mm,
have a lot of spare time.
mm,
I'll in evenings I'll watch something on Netflix or something like that. And
mm.
I'm looking forward to the next season of Cleo.
Okay, not seen that one yet.
No, no, it's a fun story about a, an assassin from formerly from the East German service who
Okay,
is now freelancing.
right. Oh, I love that kind of thing. Love anything assassin, hitman related.
Yeah,
Fun.
hit woman. She's
Yes, yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
yeah.
Quite sarcastic.
Mm. Yeah, I like feisty women in films and books. So what are you working on now?
Well, the podcast, as I said, and but the book I'm working on um, is an international espionage thriller. I'm calling it for now "Nesting Dolls" after the Russian or Ukrainian nesting dolls,
Yes.
and
Nice.
so I have an idea of what the cover will look like. And the story's about conspiracies within conspiracies within conspiracies. So
Wow.
that's the idea of the nesting dolls. Um, and again, I've done some research, so I talked to my neighbor to get some details on Chinese culture, and
Mhm.
another neighbor on, or another friend on some of the British culture, um, just so that I don't get it completely wrong and give
Right.
people names that would translate to the English equivalent of Lance
Oh,
or something like that.
right. Yes, one of we have Vauxhall is a very British car, General Motors, part of the General Motors. They had a car at one point called a Nova, which in Spain means it doesn't go. So that they had to
Oh,
change it. So
Nova,
it,
right, right.
yeah. So they changed it to Corsa. And yes,
Okay.
every now and then you go abroad and see some funny names, and you think, well, who do you think somebody would run it past someone who knows that kind of thing, but it means
Yeah.
something else in another country. So you're also you set up publishing ventures, Independent Authors International, and
Yeah. Well,
president of best-selling reads as well. Could you talk to us about
right.
that?
Independent Authors International was an idea I had. So probably more than 10 years ago, I guess, and I've let it lapse. There's just too much work to do. But um, the idea was that as writers, we definitely have other skills as well. So the idea was that we get a group together and we can share editing responsibilities with each
Mm,
other, graphic design, um, publishing, marketing, whatever other skills and knowledge we have, we would share among ourselves. And
mm,
so we would bring as a group all the knowledge and functionality of a commercial publishing company. But
Right.
it's, as you know, getting a bunch of volunteers together and keep them going is a full-time job itself. So
Yes.
uh, then I was invited to join Best Selling Leads a few years after that. And so I pretty much, as far as that sort of cooperative aspect goes, that's what I've been focusing on.
Mm.
Independent Authors International, the website's still there, but I honestly haven't done anything with it for quite a long time. But Best
Mhm.
Selling Reads is a continuing, vibrant group. So I invite all your listeners or viewers to visit the
Mm.
website, bestsellingreads.com. There's some really
Brilliant.
good writers there, and
Okay.
and there's a weekly blog and a monthly newsletter, and good deals, sales, free books
Mhm.
sometimes. So check it out if you want. If you have looking for something good to read, that's a good place to start.
Brilliant. Super. There are lots of on Facebook. I'm forever seeing people who on groups asking for recommendations. So brilliant. We'll point them in that direction, and the link will be in the biography
Thanks.
underneath this video. So that's been super
Okay.
talking to you. Daisy's been very well behaved. The odd
Not
bark,
really.
but she's pretty good. And mine's out at the park, so he didn't have any choice to be good or not. So that's brilliant. Anyway, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, and hopefully
Pleasure.
we'll meet up again and talk about work
Look
work our
forward to
way
it.
through your books and talk about those in more detail. Super.
That would be
Thank you.
wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Scott.